first up, the bill is now going back and forth between the House of Commons and the House of Lords in something that's called Ping-Pong, where they are going to try and fight out the amendments that the House of Lords have added. Michelle, do you want to give us a quick sort of factual explanation of what this is all about?
Right, so this document you need to read alongside the Lords Amendments list so that it all makes sense. But this is basically the government telling you the position that they're taking. And because Labour have such a big majority, it is normally expected what they've put in here is likely to be accepted by the House of Commons. Now, they've also snuck in a couple of brand new amendments. Now, we're not surprised they came in because even in the House of Lords, they couldn't agree on their position on social media. So there were a few different amendments that don't necessarily marry with each other. So the government have come back with their version of it. And I think they've called it L37A and L37B. But they're very worrying because they go further than the other amendments do. And potentially, now we would hope the current government wouldn't do this. We'd hope the next governments wouldn't. But they are giving themselves the power to effectively lock the internet off completely for children if they wish to. There's a particular bit where they actually make provision on the Data Protection Act. Secretary of State doesn't need to go back. They can amend the Data Protection Act, revoke, appeal, amend as they see fit by regulation. So it doesn't have to go back through the full House.
I mean, this is problematic also because children can use the internet in a really positive way. Mm-hmm. For me, my opinion is that this is really, once again, we need to try and bring things back to parents. We need to try and be encouraging parents to take more responsibility for what their children are doing, how they're spending their time. Because the moment you put a law on this, you're going to, it doesn't work really, because it's like cutting off your nose to spite your face a bit.
So you'll see at the very top, these restrictions even go into they could do a remote curfew, because one of the things they can do, as well as the amount of day your child could go on there, they can actually restrict the times of day they have access to the service, as well as features and functionality of the service. So that's much further than just restricting a little bit. They're literally giving themselves the right to, and obviously this is by regulation, so it doesn't mean this comes in when the bill comes in. This is then the Secretary of State can lay it quite quickly and get these through, because the main act exists to do it. Now, these have to be agreed by the rest of House of Commons or get a majority there. And then if this wins over the ones that the House of Lords have already proposed, then that goes back and the House of Lords have to agree or come back with their own versions of it. But things like this, times of the day and things like that, they can do remote curfews then on your children's access. So that's beyond just deciding what they can and can't. So you might be able to watch this at 5 p.m, but at 7 p.m, that same piece of media now is not appropriate. So it's going even further into breaking down that trust in the parent acting as a parent.
Yeah. What happens to all those children who, we know there's quite a cohort of children, for example, autistic children who have real problems socializing and may have problems sleeping as well, and their socialization and their education happens partially through talking with their peers over the internet. They've totally forgotten that there are cohorts for whom this is a lifeline. Those children might not talk to another single soul if this gets cut off.
Well, the thing is, you've got it should be up to parents who know their child best and who have the best interests of their child at heart and can structure things to suit their child. I mean, to me, a fairly easy fix would be to make it maybe compulsory that all people who provide software or provide that they have to have built-in parental guidance that parents can control according to their needs or something like that. To me, there are other ways you could deal with this, but you have to take this kind of thing away from parents. It's infantilizing at its worst. It's condescending. It's basically saying that we as parents are not able to manage our children, so we as the state are going to make these decisions, but it'll be blanket across all children, regardless of whether they have the intelligence or the discernment or the wisdom themselves to know how to use things.
And it's grossly hypocritical, isn't it? Because they're introducing digital IDs, they're introducing education done via AI. You know, and I don't know a single child now who doesn't have some of their homework online. You know, all of these things.
If you think in the Send white paper, one of the things it actually brings up is they're planning on making available to all secondary school children who require it an AI tutor. So it doesn't marry up. So the school can believe that an AI tutor is appropriate for your child, but you may not be able to decide what time of day your child can access the internet.
And I think there is something with the Reclaim Rights for Children with the MP letter they've drawn up, is that actually if they're going to also require children to be verified, have their age verified for this, what does that mean? That's digital ID. That is your children's data then online again. So that is also very, very problematic. And it's incredibly short-sighted. And they haven't given enough time. They've snuck this in here at the 11th hour. And so where's the debate been on this? Where has the consultation been on it? Where are the parents who are able to respond and say what they think? Where are the teachers saying what they think? Where are all these other groups of people who will have thoughts on this, and how are they being consulted? So this is hugely problematic, and we will come back to this with an action that you can do to specifically relating to this. We've got some dates, don't we?
The 9th of March, Monday, is when this starts in the House of Commons. The provisional date for it to move across to the House of Lords for the next stage of ping-pong is the 25th of March. But that's a provisional date because it depends on how quickly this gets through its initial bits.
And many of the MPs were not aware of the 9th of March because they didn't put it up in all the right places on the website. It was up on the calendar, but it wasn't up on the bill page. They've been looking for it and it's not been in the right place.
Somebody alerting them to it, or they're making some adjustments to make sure that MPs have the opportunity to be there?
I don't know.
Okay, so I suppose it's up to us to make sure that we do the job of Houses of Parliament and make sure that MPs know where they need to be and what they need to be doing, it sounds like. So off the back of this, the Reclaim Rights for Children website, the people behind that have come up with a template letter which is to do with this amendment, which is to do with the children being online and so on. I know that there are some parents that have genuine concerns because it's a bit like money. Money can be used for evil and can be used for good. Cars can be used for good, they can be used for evil. It's like anything, and the internet is no different. It's a tool, and it's up to who is using it and how they're using it. Yes, there are some valid concerns about what children are exposed on the internet, but I'm sure there's a better way to handle it. So here is a template letter for your MP that you can access from this website. So if you go on this website, you click on the green writing there, use our template letter, and you can write to your MP about this. And the main thing is just that we want proper consultation. We want proper discussion, proper scrutiny, because it's also going to deprive people of their rights as well. So please go and get hold of that template letter. This is a new angle to write to your MP about. Previously, you've written about other aspects of the bill. This is a new thing. It's a new amendment. And so you've got every right to get this to your MP, even if they're sick of hearing from you.
And in the template letter, it also goes to a link to a joint statement that is from experts around the entire world. It was ironically released, I think, the day before the government put these new amendments in, because governments around the world are starting to take this position. And you've got people from Trinity College Dublin, you've got people from America, people from Australia. There's really high level academics in there. The link is embedded in the MP template letter. It also has people your MP can contact who are experts about data and experts in how these systems actually work, so that they can actually get the right answers. Because whether you're for or against, what does need to be done is find a proportionate balance, something that doesn't take away the good with the bad. And that needs time for people to explore the proper options. And it needs the right experts, the ones who know about it, to be able to be spoken to and explain what you could potentially put in place that may or may not achieve what people actually want to achieve without just blanket restricting everyone.
And this is urgent. We
Yeah.
need to act on this right now, if possible, please. And all of these things, all that we are seeing, where we're into various governments around the world, things that they're wanting to introduce, there's a very specific agenda behind it that is kind of anti-family, anti-parents having an influence over their children, and more control of your data, of your information, because that's power. Having that information gives power to governments and control, which is very scary, and it's not conspiracy theory anymore, because we are seeing it actually coming. We are seeing this sort of thing being practiced in action now, this hyper suspicion of anything that's not kind of mainstream. And we've got some examples, some of these learning centers, learning hubs that are now being raided and so on by Ofsted and whatnot. This is the Humanist UK website, who are obviously like jumping for joy every time a so-called illegal school gets targeted. But this article, it says that out of nearly 1,000, only 7 have been prosecuted. Now, I don't doubt, I haven't read this article, but I don't doubt that Humanist UK think this is a shocking state of affairs, that only 7 have been prosecuted.
Yes, this is 6 months old or a bit more is this article, but we've brought it up again because it has been brought to our attention this week that this is still going on. They're horrific. They actually go and they effectively raid, a la Gestapo, the settings. There are children inside. They bang on the door. They've got high-vis jackets on and body cams, and they stand there and demand entry. They read the proprietor their rights on the basis that they suspect that the place is an illegal school. The reason they've only had 7 prosecutions is because they're not breaking the flipping law. Yeah, these places are not breaking the law. They're just disliked. So these are places that are operating for less than the number of hours, which is a notional law, but it's still less than the number of hours that we believe a school should be. Some of them don't even have lessons. Many of them are effectively tutoring centres. And I'm sure they wouldn't go and raid the very well-known tutoring centres and pretend they were illegal schools at all. Some of them have a religious bias. I mean, bias in a positive way, not a negative way. They have a religious theme. But so what? They form part of the suitable education of a home-educated child, and parents should be able to avail themselves of these places. It's more of the government effectively trying to prevent parents from doing what is best for their children, i.e. not sending their children to mainstream school.
Now, this article makes allegations that a lot of these settings are not very sanitary conditions, or the children don't have access to a toilet, or they're being beaten. Obviously, there's no evidence to back it up, because if there's only 7 prosecutions, that means they didn't find evidence to suggest that there's anything illegal going on. So you can make as sensational an article as you like. It doesn't mean that there's facts to back it up.
Yeah, none of the ones that I've been involved in supporting have ticked any of these boxes at all. They've all been absolutely fantastic places where they love children and they're doing the very best for their children and having excellent results. Self-Managed Learning College, for example, that one was raided. Hebden Bridge Learning Community, that one was raided twice, I think. They come in and they threaten these people with jail and prosecution, and they're not actually doing anything wrong. And the ones where they've issued notices, by the way, it says in here that they issued 212 notices or something like that. Sometimes it's a very tiny misdemeanor, or they're just sort of like half an hour over the hourly limit for the week or something like that. If it was something really, really bad, they're being caught and there'd be convictions and prosecutions, but they're not.
And of course, what this shows is that they are aware of them.
Yeah.
If there's nearly 1,000 that have been inspected, then they do know about them. It just makes a mockery of all these statements that they make in their Houses of Parliament as well, to try and infer that these are bad things. So we are seeing this, and with this bill, if this bill passes, it's going to make it even harder for these centres to be set up where our children can go and can receive tutoring. They're all going to have to provide information to the government. The centres will have to report basically on every child and any other child, that even the children that the government may not have known about, they've got to basically tell them about those children too. It's all about information. It's all about control. And it's highly distasteful. It's not in the spirit in which this country has existed all these thousands of years. So then we have a story which, Alison, you can perhaps talk a little bit about this family.
This is a British Australian couple who went off to live a lovely, wholesome life in the woods in Italy and have basically come a cropper. It is really, really sad because they have been doing what they think is best for their children, and their children were happy. There's no indication that these children were abused or neglected or anything. Everything here is based on prejudice. And we've had news from our colleagues in Italy just today. The press have reported that the authorities plan to send the mother away. So they've already separated the 3 children and the mother from the father, the authorities. And now they are planning to separate the mother from the children and possibly to separate the children from each other on the basis of prejudice, because they are claiming that they need to do that in order that the children socialise. Oh, there's so much wrong with that.
I would say there is actually an action here that we can do. A legal source told the Times that if the couple wanted to leave Italy, they would have to wait for the court deciding their future to hand them back their children. That is, unless Australia or the UK does a diplomatic deal in which they guarantee the protection of the children, the source added. Something we could potentially do is ask for intervention from the UK, I think from our MPs, or, put pressure on them to intervene, to speak up for this family, and perhaps that the UK offers them something here. I think that could be an option. I mean, Michelle, do you know if that's something we could do?
Yeah, no, certainly we should. That's the reason we have ministers in certain roles. So we certainly could definitely sort of petition Keir and petition probably the Foreign Secretary now.
Yeah.
And
Minister for Children.
Yeah, and the Minister for Children, and I suppose Children's Commissioner as well, because actually those children should come under the Children's Commissioner role. And she should be advocating for them to be able to have their family life and be all together.
Yeah. The more we can also bring this more high profile, the better it is for the family as well, in terms of just the scrutiny that the Italian government would then come under. So this family basically just wanted to live off grid, do things in a very natural way. And I think there's a lot of people in the UK who like to do that too. There's nothing wrong with it.
It was off grid, it was unschooling, it was all sorts of things. There are restrictions in Italy with home education, and the child has to pass exams every year that are set by the schools. But a very interesting part of this is that Erica Di Martino, who is our contact over there, she spoke to the education minister today about this family. She has a good relationship with the education minister, the equivalent in Italy of Bridget Phillipson. And he is very sympathetic towards home education and hoping to develop home education further in Italy. And he's appalled at what's happened to this family, as is reportedly the Prime Minister of Italy. So it is very interesting that people in the highest echelons of government are appalled with what's happened here. And it's basically the family court and the equivalent of social services who have done this to this family.
Yes, I think there is a quote in this article somewhere. The couple's battle to raise their children as they see fit has been backed by the Prime Minister, Giorgia Meloni. So that is huge. That is huge. And so we need to really be thinking of this family and perhaps petitioning the ministers here to intervene on their behalf, because these children are half British. And actually, there's nothing wrong with what they're doing at all. Otherwise, next time they'll come for those who live on boats, or they'll come for those who maybe live in a prefab home. Who knows? You can then make it up as you go along. So we do need to be aware of stories like this and showing our support where we can, and petitioning our ministers to intervene, and perhaps the Children's Commissioner as well. But this is the kind of thing that we are possibly going to face if the Children's Wellbeing in Schools Bill passes. We are moving more in this direction than we ever have been. And we already are exposed to this prejudice by politicians, by local authorities, people who disagree with our lifestyle for whatever reason. And I feel like the Children's Wellbeing in Schools Bill kind of makes us fair game for that kind of discriminatory practice. Okay, moving on. This is our last item. Okay, yes. So this was some work done by Education Otherwise. So you want to tell us a bit about this, Alison?
This is their Trends series. They do one pretty much every year, where they look at people new to home education in the previous 12 months They look at their reasons for moving to home education, etc., etc. And it just confirms the trend that there are less people as a proportion of those home educating who do it as a first choice, like I did. I didn't send my children to school from the get-go. There are less people doing that as a proportion. However, there are a lot of people discovering home education when they're partway through school and thinking, oh, this is actually a better idea for my children, and making a positive move towards home educating their children. It also shows that effectively the proportion of home educated children as a proportion of children who are compulsory school age in this country has increased, because the school age population has actually dropped this last 12 months or so, and yet our numbers have increased. So that's very interesting.
Yeah.
Do keep note of the numbers. So can you see on that graph, it says the numbers of home educated children on October census date. That is the figure you should be using when you're talking about the number of children who are home educated. The DFE do produce this absolutely diabolical figure, which is called the number of children home educated at any point during the year. So that can be children who were home educated for 5 minutes. And it double counts some of them, the ones that have been taken out twice.
I love to exaggerate. It climbs with each statement they make. It just, they add on a few more and they add on a few more.
Yeah,
so
that's not how
you get this
statistics are
concept
supposed to work. They would fail their bachelor's degree if they went about using statistics in the way that they do on that. It should always be a snapshot taken on the same day. There it is, October.
If it works for schools, it should work for home education.
Exactly.
And I think the other thing, this is very useful for pointing out, if you want to link to it to your MP, is to point out these are the reasons children are home educating. The problem is the school system. And if the school system doesn't change, it's just going to continue. Why don't you fix it? Stop trying to put a finger in the dike, go and mend it, go and see what's going on, go and fix what's wrong, make school a nicer place for children to be, where they can thrive, which most parents would like anyway.
I don't understand why we don't have the idea that children should want to go to school. What's wrong with that concept? In the UK, we are absolutely dreadful at this. I had another look. I don't know whether anybody saw, but I posted it on my Facebook wall this week. The article that the BBC did about schools in Finland came up in my memories. So I reposted it, and I was just reminded at how very, very different the attitude to education is in Finland. And yet they still have linguistic issues because they have a large foreign population in Finland in order to fill the tech jobs. But also they don't have school uniform. The teachers are in charge of the curriculum. There is no national curriculum. There's a couple of sort of themes they have to follow. And yet the children come out of school with some of the highest qualifications in Europe. So, you can make school fun and effective at the same time. So let's do that.
Yes, exactly. And I remember my school years here back in my day, where actually it wasn't that bad. If I hadn't prepared for a test, I might get a bit of a tummy ache. But on the whole, the curriculum was aimed at a manageable level for most children. There would only be maybe a small percentage that were struggling to keep up, and a small percentage that were where it wasn't enough. But basically, it was all achievable. You still had time in your day to do fun activities, to do music, to do choir, to do acting, and all of these things, to have a well-balanced education. And I think this is the thing, is that it's so brain heavy. And all of these other things that we can do that are creative and fun, they develop our brains. We don't, they also help with that. So look at this. We've got the general dissatisfaction with the school system. School could not meet my child's special needs. School could not meet my child's mental health needs. I do not consider the school curriculum to be suitable. The biggest one, though, is this general dissatisfaction with the school system.
Yeah, that's what I was saying about them making a positive choice to go and do something different. And we need to concentrate on the positives and support people that come out of school to provide a really great education for their children. I think we just continue to do that. In that vein, I'm going to allow you a little bit of publicity. Mrs.
yeah.
English.
Oh, yeah, that'll be nice.
You have a conference coming up.
Yes, I do. So every year in May, I organize a conference for home educators called the Learn Free Home Educators Conference. The focus on it is always about empowering and encouraging and equipping parents. And in the times we're in right now, where we've got so many parents who are having to pull their children out sometimes very suddenly with very little time to prepare and feeling overwhelmed, not knowing where to start. This year we really, really want to focus on those families that need just a time to take a breath, to get some information from people who know a lot, who are experienced, who are wise, and to just come away feeling like, actually, you know what, I can do this, and it doesn't need to be a bad negative thing that I had to take my child out of school. It could actually be the making of us. And so the theme this year of the conference is choosing your child, changing the story. And we are really looking at, how can you make this about your child and in a positive way where you can change the outcomes for them. Tickets are available now. There is an early bird price. The lineup is looking really good. I'm still inviting and waiting for some speakers to get back to me. But we've got a wonderful lineup, and Michelle will be there as well. Jen Hodge, who you all know, she will be doing the keynote speech, and she really is such an inspiration and so encouraging to listen to. We've got Monica O'Connor coming from Ireland, which is very exciting.
I just say I am a big Monica fan. I have been friends with Monica for something in the region of 20 years now, and she is an absolute home education goddess in Ireland. She's a little bit like our Joy Baker.
She's very sensible. She's got loads of wisdom. She's been there, had the T-shirt ripped off of her, all of that, hasn't she?
Into prison.
Yeah.
For home education.
So
look at that! You've got
yes.
no.
You've got to read the small text because I hadn't populated this yet fully. So Harriet these are the people we sometimes have. So we've had Harriet, we've had you this year. You can't make it, and Harriet unfortunately can't make it. I will update these pictures but Heidi Steele will be there, of course. Katie Finlayson, who knows an awful lot about exams and the exam route. So it's looking very exciting. I am very, very excited about this conference. And what I really would encourage you to do is, if you are a new home educator and it's all just feeling a bit much, come along. This is going to be a great day out and a great opportunity to get lots of good information, solid information. There's showing the prices. The early bird price is £24. If you're a couple, you can pay £40, which gives you even more of a saving. We do have some children's activities for anyone who can't organize childcare. If you go to the speakers page, Kat, then they'll see some of those that I've added already. I'm still busy adding more. It's going to be a really good day. So please, if you know people who are struggling, just point them in the direction of this conference. So we've got also Rosie Finlayson, who's Katie's daughter. She'll be sharing about her journey. There's Jen, there's me, there's Heidi. And Randall will be doing some stuff with any of the dads who want an opportunity to chat. Nicola Leyland, whose phenomenal story about school-based trauma and how she and her family had to heal from that experience, she will be sharing as well. And as I said, we are still adding to this list. Got Brittany Burton coming from London, talking about how to create your own community or how to build community for your child. So it's going to be an amazing day. All the topics are on the schedule, so you can go and see exactly what we'll be covering in the day. And we are just now putting speakers to those different topics that we'll be covering. It's actually also a very busy day, so you actually have a choice of 3 sessions at any given time. So you can choose your track. You can choose. So there's a track specifically for people who are fresh out of that school environment and struggling to find their feet. Then we have another track for people who are a bit more settled and are just looking for a bit of refresher, new ideas. And then we have an enrichment track, which is for those who want to do a bit of a deep dive into certain topics. So it's a very full day. And it's always really good to meet everybody, to see people face to face, share lunch together, have a good chat over lunch. Lots of really, really good things that come from a day like this. So it's very close to the train station in Coventry, so you can just get the train and walk across the road to the church, that the church building we're using. But yeah, so thank you so much for letting me share about that. But anyway, I really hope we see lots of you at the conference. That would be absolutely amazing. It's, as I said, I'm very, very excited. We hope to have goodie bags for everybody that comes, and really make it a lovely day for all home educating parents. So that's great. Thank you so much for letting me share about that. I know it's not about politics, but heck, we need a bit of good news right now. We need a good moment and a positive moment where we can just come together and not talk about all this stuff for a day. So yeah, hope to see some of you there. And I think that's it. Everybody say bye.
Bye.